I agree. And I think it's a barrier that actually exacerbates other issues within this same type of realm. And it puts us behind, right? So let's start out with the first barrier, which is the consumer barrier, and the consumer not purchasing an EV because the infrastructure isn't there and they're not sure they're going to be able to drive from Nebraska to Minnesota because the charging infrastructure isn't there for them to be able to go along their way. And I understand it, right? Range anxiety, range is important for people. But we don't have it there. And if people aren't buying EVs, car manufacturers aren't pushing technology. Now, we'll step back into that issue as soon as we realize that the first thing someone's going to say is, well, gas is so much cheaper right now. Well, the problem is that OPEC and OPEC plus nations are oversupplying oil, and they're pushing the oil prices down because there's so much supply that oil is going at $60 and $50 a barrel. I almost said a gallon, but a barrel. And in doing so, we're going to start seeing the same effects we had in 2020 when OPEC oversupplied market. We had a lot of smaller companies that didn't have the capital behind them. They went under. And now when we go to ramp up, well, guess what? We don't have those companies anymore. The larger companies are sitting here and they've got capital, but they're not drilling either. They're not putting pipe in the ground. They're not pumping oil because it doesn't make sense for them to sell oil at a discount. If they're not making a profit, they're not going to sell it. They're not going to ship it, and they're not going to put any portion of dollars, of tax dollars, back in because of anything for our gross domestic product that we're exporting. Just not going to happen. And when that finally does stop, when OPEC stops, it's going to increase our prices, and now we've got less companies to drill, which means gas is going to go up, and specifically for those who have fuel oil that are on fuel oil and diesel, your prices are going to go up too. Now, the third barrier, let's jump back into the manufacturers, because if consumers aren't purchasing EVs, manufacturers aren't pushing the technology. We already see that Ford and GM, Rivian, they've already made statements that we are about 3 to 5 years behind on battery technology from the companies in China. We know that already. BYD, CATL, they're already proving that. We know that fact. Other technology, right? Other EV technologies such as motor efficiencies, charging, we are behind 5 to 10 years. And that comes from individuals within that industry. They know it. The U.S. is far behind because the consumer isn't purchasing EVs and they're not pushing the companies to develop it faster. They're not developing anything across the board. And now we're seeing BYD, NIO, and all of these other Chinese companies, they're moving into Australia, they're moving into Europe, and they're going to start taking over. And what's going to happen with our American companies that are also in Europe, that are in Australia? They're going to really struggle, which means we're going to start to struggle because we're not exporting vehicles and we're not producing vehicles in other countries like we should be. It's a trickle effect, but it shouldn't be because Congress has already allocated the dollars and then it was paused. So call your congressman, start complaining about the EV infrastructure not being pushed.